He was born into a world where struggle was written into the fabric of everyday life. His family lived in a small hut with walls that cracked during the summer heat and leaked when the rain poured. The roof was patched with old sheets of tin, and the floor was nothing but hardened dirt. Poverty was not an occasional visitor. It was a permanent resident in his home. His parents worked tirelessly just to keep food on the table, but many nights ended with empty stomachs and whispered prayers of survival. From an early age, he understood that life was not going to be easy. While other children played with toys, his toys were stones, sticks, and the dreams he carried quietly in his heart. He longed for shoes that didn't pinch his feet, for clothes without tears, and for meals that could fill his hunger. But more than that, he longed for a future that looked different from the hardships surrounding him. Every morning began before dawn. He would walk miles to fetch water from a well, balancing a heavy pot on his small shoulders. After that, he helped his mother gather firewood and clean the little space they called home. His father, worn down by years of hard labor, would leave early for work, and the boy would watch him disappear down the dusty road, silently promising himself that one day things would be different. Despite the weight of responsibilities, he found a spark of hope in education. The local school was far, but he never let the distance discourage him. He often arrived late, his clothes wrinkled, his hair messy, but his eyes told a different story. Eyes filled with hunger, not for food, but for knowledge. He had no notebooks of his own and no lunchbox to carry, yet he listened with such intensity that even the teachers could not ignore him. He absorbed every word, memorizing lessons with precision. When others laughed or mocked him for his ragged appearance, he stayed silent, letting his determination speak louder than any insult. The days were not kind. Hunger was a constant shadow. Many times his stomach growled so loudly in class that others noticed, but he held back his tears. At night, he studied under the dim glow of a kerosene lamp, sometimes until the flame flickered out. He borrowed books from classmates, carefully turning each page as though it were made of gold. When he couldn't afford pencils, he wrote in the dirt with a stick, practicing numbers and letters until they became part of him. There were moments when he wanted to give up, moments when exhaustion made him feel small and powerless. But whenever despair tried to crush him, he thought of his mother's weary smile and his father's calloused hands. He thought of the silent sacrifices his parents made, and he knew he could not allow his life to follow the same path. He promised himself that no matter how many times life pushed him down, he would rise again. As the years went on, his determination grew stronger. Slowly, teachers began to notice his brilliance. One teacher, deeply moved by his commitment, decided to help him secretly. She paid his fees when his parents could not, and she gave him books that she bought from her own salary. Her belief in him became the extra strength he needed to keep moving forward. By the time he reached higher grades, he had become the top student in his class. His name began to spread in the village, surprising those who had once dismissed him as just another poor child destined to fail. Parents started telling their own children to learn from him, to watch how he studied, how he refused to let anything stop him. What was once ridicule turned into respect. When the final exams approached, the pressure was heavier than ever. This was his chance to prove to the world that poverty could not define him. He studied late into the nights, his lamp burning while the village slept. He revised lessons over and over, repeating them aloud to make sure he understood every detail. His health began to weaken, but his spirit remained unbroken. The exam days arrived. Sitting at the desk, he gripped his pen tightly, his heart pounding with both fear and hope. He wrote with all the strength of his years of struggle, pouring every lesson, every sacrifice into those answer sheets. Each question reminded him of the journey that had brought him there. The hunger, the laughter of others, the sleepless nights, the endless chores. He refused to be defeated. Weeks later, the results were announced. He stood in the crowd, trembling, as the list was read aloud. His name was called, not just as a student who passed, but as the highest scorer in the entire district. The crowd gasped, teachers smiled with pride, and his parents cried tears they had never cried before. The boy who once had nothing had achieved what seemed impossible. That day, the village saw more than just a result. They saw hope. They saw that even the poorest child, with determination and faith, could rise above the chains of struggle. His success did not just belong to him. It belonged to every child who had ever been told they were not enough. It belonged to every parent who sacrificed silently, believing that one day their children would have better lives. His journey was far from over. Success in exams was only the beginning. He continued to study harder, pushing himself beyond limits, fueled by the belief that nothing could stop him anymore. And though challenges still lay ahead, he now carried proof that resilience could turn the impossible into reality. His story became a light in the darkness, a reminder that struggles are not curses, but stepping stones. Poverty may steal comfort, hunger may weaken the body, and doubt may surround like a storm, but none of these can destroy the will of a determined heart. A poor boy who never gave up had changed not only his own destiny, but had inspired countless others to rise above their challenges and fight for a future worth living.